everyone, and welcome to another episode of Conversations in the Future of Work. I am your host, Rachel Cossar, and I am very pleased to welcome Katie Sheketoff on the show today. And we're going to be diving into all things L&D. So Katie, welcome.
Hello, it's so great to be here.
Thank you so much for taking the time. If you don't mind just sharing a little bit about your background and what you're up to now.
Yeah, so I am the founder of Elevate Labs. We started earlier this year, so very early in our journey. And Elevate Labs is an organization dedicated to elevating the leadership of individuals around in a variety of different industries and spaces. And we specifically look at everyone from frontline managers all the way up to the C-suite. And I think one thing that is unique about what we do is this real focus on lower level managers and mid-level managers. And this all comes from my background working on leadership development in a variety of different spaces. I started my career in nonprofits and working both domestically and internationally with different organizations. And one of the things that I saw pretty consistently is that what set apart organizations that were having a really big impact on the communities and the people they wanted to serve was the ones where they had the structures, systems, and humans in the right places doing the right work. And that got me kind of into this talent space with detours around Ukraine, Romania, Egypt, Rwanda, Malaysia, and then back over the last 6 years at Marriott, leading our leadership development, global strategy, design, and approach. And one of the things that we learned at Marriott was that we were doing a lot of great work at high levels of leadership, but we weren't really touching all of those frontline leaders. Marriott globally has around 200,000 frontline leaders of others and a huge community that we weren't reaching to the degree that we needed to. And so one of the things I did there and what I've been bringing it with me in Elevate Labs is this thought on how can we really reach a huge environment of leaders.
Mm-hmm. Okay, there's so much in there. So I'm excited to dive in. So you mentioned that you have a very specific focus at Elevate L&D in terms of who you are looking to empower. And it's a much broader range than I think the typical focus, which tends to be like very much that like upper level C-suite or like high pose. But can you share more about your philosophy on training beyond the executive level?
Yeah, so I think traditionally the emphasis in leadership development tends to focus on executives. And the thought, and there's a lot of value behind this, is that if you start at the top, those changes trickle down. And actually that change can't happen until it starts at the top.
Yeah.
And that's true. People model what they see, the levels above them. And so there is huge benefit to starting at the top. The reality, though, is that in our current environment, we don't have the time to wait for change to trickle down. And we need that change to be happening immediately at all levels of organizations. And there's two data points that I hold really close to my heart. One is Gallup came out with a study quite some time ago that 70% of turnover is related to people's managers. So if you look at where are we seeing engagement, action, and enthusiasm about an organization at the front line, that is coming from their individual managers. So there's a huge value if we're thinking about how are we building organizations that are strong, where people want to stay, in really thinking about that front line. The second data point that I look at quite frequently is from Google's Project Aristotle, which looked at the most effective teams and who are the teams that are innovating the most, that are creating the most change, that are doing the best work, that are the highest performing. And what they found was that those teams are ones where the leaders are creating an environment of psychological safety. Psychological safety being a space where people can take risks, can innovate, can learn, and they're not afraid to make a mistake. So when we look at those two things, we look at the organizations that need to be successful for the future. It needs to be organizations where people want to show up every day. They want to take risks. They want to try something new. And that requires that their managers are creating that environment. And so that is sort of where Elevate Labs has really come together on how we need to be supporting people beyond the executive level to really understand what does it mean to lead in this environment. And it does look extremely different. So one of the things that we've been focusing on a lot recently is what is the role of AI in elevating the the learning of a manager. So we know there's tons of work out there on how you can leverage AI in your day-to-day work if you're a writer, an editor, a product manager, a coder, whatever. But what I haven't seen a lot of, and what we've been really focusing on, is how can you use AI to learn and to improve yourself as a manager and to improve your team. And so we've been trying to pull in a lot of thinking around how can we take where we are today, whether that's AI or the political situation or whatever it is, and really focus on what do managers at the front lines need today, not what a leadership expert said 40 years ago. Those things don't apply anymore.
Yeah, it's all really interesting because a core part of our focus at Virtual Sapiens is manager training as well. And I'd be curious to hear, because I feel like a lot of times people will be promoted into these manager roles based on their individual contributor performance, right? And that will oftentimes be as subject matter experts or, high-level performers in a specific skill. And then all of a sudden they're having to manage people. And there tends to be a huge gap in supporting the behaviors that are required to handle people. Like it's just such a completely different skill set, right? And so much, those behaviors really run the gamut, but we find the communication is such a big part of that. And giving people a safe space to practice communication has been something that's really resonated with the market, particularly around that manager training kind of people skills space.
Yeah, no, totally. And I love that you mentioned that, because I think one of the things that we found, so often when companies want to bring in, when they're thinking about manager training, the common approach is, let me find someone who can come in and deliver a manager training. And they come in, they're in a room for a day, and then they leave. And there's two big problems with this approach. First of all, they can be great. I've done those trainings. I've participated in them. I've led them. They're fabulous. No shade on my manager trainers. But the challenge is you don't get a chance to practice what you're doing. You don't get a chance to really apply it in your day-to-day. And you don't have that safe space for feedback. So I think what Virtual Sapiens is doing is really similar to what we're trying to do in our programs, of creating an opportunity, because we're bringing in people from a variety of different industries for just-in-time learning. We are structuring learning across several weeks instead of just in one moment, with opportunities to practice. It's exactly what Virtual Sapiens is doing, of giving people these safe opportunities to practice those communication skills, feedback, delegation, whatever that looks like, because they need opportunities to try it out, to fail, and to get feedback without it damaging their future relationships.
Absolutely. So how do you structure your programs, whether it's with groups of leaders, or like because you mostly work with groups of people?
Yeah. So our programs are open to the public, and we found that we wanted to accomplish a couple different things. One was, like I mentioned, to provide just-in-time learning. So you mentioned people are promoted from individual contributor roles into these manager of other roles, and they're promoted because they're great at their jobs, which is fabulous. But no one ever teaches them how to be a manager, and being a manager is an entirely different skill set. And so we wanted to provide something that's available when people move into those roles. So you have that emergency toolkit of how do I become a manager?
Yeah.
The second thing is we wanted to create that psychological safety where people can share, can bring their real problems, can get advice, get feedback on their biggest challenges, and practice some of these skills without worrying about their relationships. And so we created a variety of public on-demand courses. We have one core course that we offer every month, which is Leading High-Performing Teams. This course is for, again, it's generally focused on that frontline manager, first-time leader, right when they move into that manager role. And then we're also starting to experiment with a couple different courses that are more focused on specific challenges that managers might have. So the one that we're really excited to launch next month is on managing conflict and underperformance. One of the things I hear when I talk to managers so often, the biggest challenge they're struggling with is conflict on their teams, especially when they have someone who's underperforming. And struggling with how to have those real conversations with the person who's underperforming, and how to create an environment on the team where those who are high performing feel valued and heard, even with this dynamic. And so we're starting to offer more like that. We're also going to next year launch more courses on communications, on influence, on managing diverse teams, managing virtual teams. So we'll be pulling in some more concepts. Again, trying to focus on how can we reach people with what they need when they need it.
Yes, right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, that's it's such an interesting approach to have it be like, what are some of the benefits to having these courses? Like, I'm assuming you also sell directly into organizations in a more private way, or is everything always just like fully open to the public? And so there's like a diversity of different people from different companies.
So to be totally honest, we're figuring it out.
Yeah.
I think we're sort of torn in both ways. I think on the one hand, part of our model is the value of it being public and the diversity of experiences, bringing in people from a variety of different backgrounds to learn from each other. On the other hand, we believe our content's really great and we would really love for more people to access it. And if that means going directly into companies, then that's a way to go. I think where we are hoping to land is more on a subscription model where we have partnerships with companies and they're sending their people through our public courses and maybe getting some potential more customized bespoke add-ons for potentially more senior levels, more advanced spaces. So we're figuring it out. We're 10 months into this journey. So I think a lot of what we're doing is asking a lot of questions and figuring things out the hard way. And it's been a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Speaking of like your past and kind of coming into this, we always have guests with interesting backgrounds on our show. And I'd be curious, specifically related to your work in hospitality. Like I find hospitality is such a microcosm of like the broader society, right? Like it's just so fascinating in terms of people you have to deal with. So what lessons have you brought over specifically from your time in hospitality?
I have so many. I think in two different directions. So I would say first in the lens of a large global organization with lots of employees with lower levels of education, English proficiency, variety of different cultural contexts. And then I have a set of lessons that are hospitality specific. So I think in thinking about the global lens, there's two big things that I really learned. One was that I had come from a primarily kind of white collar space prior to coming to Marriott. And I'd worked with leaders who had multiple college degrees. The organization I had worked for had, I think, 50% of our employees went to Harvard type of situation. So that was what I was used to. And there was this real assumption, which now that I look back on it, I'm pretty disturbed that I sort of let that exist in my space, that people that don't have that kind of background or education can engage in the same leadership concepts. And what I found could not have been further from the truth. And that actually we had to, at Marriott, we had to write all of our trainings as if we were writing to a 6th grade reading level. And the approach that Manian had before I got there was that means you need to dumb down the content. And I fundamentally didn't want to do that. What I wanted to do instead was to simplify the language and elevate the content. And it took a while. It took a lot of false starts. It took a lot of mistakes, but we got there. And what we found was actually mind-blowing. I heard some people who were, we designed a program for our frontline associates, not managers of others. So hourly workers all over the world, and listening to some of these stories of people who no one had ever taken them seriously. No one had ever invested in them. And they were going deep into our leadership concepts, looking at emotional intelligence and really getting into all of the different components of emotional intelligence, talking about psychological safety, talking about strategic leadership and financial decision-making. And these are people who are housekeepers and engineers and not really the positions that you would have anticipated being the ones like thinking these thoughts. And so I think my first big learning was that people are capable of so much more. And what's holding them back is our expectations of them and our ability to speak in simple languages. So that's I think like probably the biggest thing that I've been bringing with me. The second big lesson in that space is that there's huge value in people connecting across different spaces. So you might say it was all Marriott, it's all the same. We had groups of people from all over the world working together and learning from each other. And consistently what we heard back from our courses is that people learn the most from their peers from really different situations. And so the example I use all the time is, we would have a front desk manager from the W New York in a small working group with the housekeeping supervisor from the Cincinnati Courtyard. And those are really different contexts, really different backgrounds, really different challenges that they're facing. And yet they were able to really learn because of those differences, which is another thing that one of the reasons why we really prioritize having these more diverse cohorts. So that's kind of the like giant organization lens. The second lens is hospitality specific. And I think there's two big things that I've learned. One is that people just want to be heard. Ultimately, want to feel like they matter. And I talked quite a lot actually with guest facing associates in our hotels all over the world and listening to what does it take to create a successful guest experience. What they said consistently is people need to be heard. And I think that if there's one lesson that I think is the most important for managers, for leaders, really for humans in this moment, it's that people just want to be heard. The second thing is that people want to be of service and people want to help. And I think that we so often lose track of that in our day-to-day life. We don't want to be a burden on other people, but that as humans, so often it is so meaningful to us to be of service. And so thinking about, and that's just such a common belief and philosophy, and it transcends cultural backgrounds, it transcends political beliefs, it transcends religious affiliations. I mean, people want to be of service. And so we've really built our programs centered around all of these lessons. But I think, to me, grounding the idea of a manager as someone who is of service to others, and how can you be of service to yourself, to your team, to your organization, and how can you create an environment where everyone feels heard.
Right. Yeah, those are really powerful lessons, I think, in a number of ways. What you said about, like, it's often other people's assumptions that kind of keep people from really fulfilling their potential. I feel like I was, honestly always surprised in the ballet world, by how, like, you could have someone who was in the corps de ballet, and then, right, so the structure of a ballet company, you have the corps de ballet where the majority of the dancers are, and then you have the soloists, and then you have the principals, right? And principals get to do all the exciting, like, amazing solo roles, and then, they're the heroes of the story ballets, and then the corps de ballet is like the body of the choreography, which is critical, but it's just a different beast. And so it was always amazing when someone from the corps de ballet was given an opportunity to do a principal role. And you would kind of be blown away because, like, they would like always rise to the occasion. Like, rarely would someone actually not be able to do it with the right coaching and the right investment,
Absolutely.
It's always something to really like. And I think it also kind of goes both ways, because people's own self-beliefs can also stop them from reaching higher and doing something that maybe they've never done before, right? And so if you have the right kinds of support and you have the right kinds of coaching and investment in your skills development, like, you can do so much more maybe than you might even have thought of yourself, right?
100%. I think that's so critical. And one of the things we talk about, I published an article a couple months ago in the Association for Talent Development magazine about potential and the idea of high potentials. And what I have found is that the whole concept of high potential is flawed because it's an outside in as opposed to inside out.
Yeah.
And actually the first thing you need to look at is, what do people want? Because thinking about that court of ballet, if you have someone in the court of ballet who's like, I'm just happy being here, then
right.
you're never going to be great in a principal role. But if you have someone who desperately wants to try out being a principal, and to your point, they get the right coaching, they get the right support. When you have that motivation, that desire, that internal push, there's so few limits to what you can actually achieve.
Yeah.
And to your point, it's the limits that we put on ourselves and the limits that others put on us.
Totally. Oh my God. So important. Switching tracks a little bit. I'm curious now that you're in this founder role. I mean, I'm not surprised, having heard the entrepreneurial kind of spirit that you applied in your other, non-founder roles. But what's been your biggest surprise so far in this journey as a founder?
Everything.
Yeah.
So more specifically, I think the biggest surprise has been the difference between marketing and sales. And I had thought that a lot of my job was going to be sales, and that I was going to be on these calls and doing sales calls.
Yeah.
And I know how to do that. And I wasn't, it's not necessarily my favorite thing, but I can do that and I'm good at it. What I was not anticipating was the amount of time and effort and energy around marketing.
Yeah.
And I think what's interesting in marketing, I was talking to someone recently that I feel like I've been getting in. I feel like the last few months have been an MBA in marketing. Yeah. And I feel like each month is a semester. And so over the summer, I was at Marketing 101, and last month was Marketing 201, and I'm starting to get up to 301.
Nice.
I mean, we're there. I'm like barely managing with the C, so we'll see how it goes. But I think what's been interesting in the marketing is realizing it's not just telling the story well, it's having the right story, believing in the story, and really having something that is clear and consistent. And it's funny because I've worked with so many startup organizations over the years on vision, mission, values. And I was like, we don't need a vision, mission, values. It's fine. It's kind of in my head. And my team the last few weeks are like, so about that vision, mission, values, think we could figure that out? Yeah. And just really thinking about, why is what I'm offering right? And where am I sticking my feet in the sand for the right reasons versus where am I letting my ego drive what we're doing, as opposed to where the market is, and also sort of where the future is. Yeah. And so that has been my biggest surprise. I also think the thing that everyone says that you love, and when you go into business for yourself, it's like, isn't it great to be your own boss? And I've been surprised that that's actually been the worst part. All I want is a boss. There's some days when I wake up and I'm like, I just want someone to tell me what to do.
No kidding. For sure. But, someone who knows to just guide the way, and you just
exactly.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's been a joy and a blessing and terrifying and all the things all at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the epitome of being able to surprise yourself in what you're able to achieve and accomplish in ways that, you completely have no experience.
Yes.
Really. It's like humbling, but then also very inspiring. So
yeah. It's all of those things.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Awesome. Katie, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your expertise. It's so interesting to hear the lessons you've learned, and then also the ways that you're creatively looking at leadership development in a very evolving and shifting world. How can people follow your work? You mentioned a newsletter or an article that you wrote.
Yes. So the best place to follow us right now is on LinkedIn. We are the Elevate Labs page on LinkedIn, or my personal page. We are consistently publishing new content. We have a blog. We're writing articles. We're publishing a book early next year. So lots of things coming up. That would be the best place to get engaged. And there's also you can check out our website, which is elevatelabsleadership.com. And if you go to elevatelabsleadership.com, you can sign up for our newsletter. You can check out our upcoming events. We have monthly Compass sessions. These are short sessions to get a sense of what our programs are. And you can register for any of them for just $1 with the code VirtualSapiens. So all one word.
Amazing. Love it. Great. Well, thanks so much. And as always, thanks to our audience for joining. We'll see you next time.
Thanks.